stop what you're doing, because there's a nation in West Africa that was given a choice between freedom and protection. They chose freedom and paid the price the very next day. Yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So in this video, we're uncovering the whole story of Guinea, a country full of resistance, intrigue and paradox. And you'll definitely want to stick around until the end to learn more about its interesting culture. You know, while the story goes back about 30,000 years ago, we'll start around 900 CE. This was when we saw the Suzu and Malinka, or Maninka, people started to migrate and encroach upon the existing Baga, Koniagi, and Nalu populations. It's a classic story of migration and cultural shifts shaping the demographics of the area. Then something happens. From the mid-13th century, the towns and villages in what we call Upper Guinea were swallowed up by one of the greatest powers in West African history, the Mali Empire. It defeated the Soso Empire around 1235 CE at the Battle of Kirina, and for a couple of centuries, this region was a key part of that grand, gold-rich civilization. On top of that, this was also the period when Islam started to make its way into the region. But, as with all empires, the Mali Empire eventually weakened. So by the 15th century, its vassal states, and later the powerful Songhai Empire in the 1460s, took over. The Songhai Empire split into smaller kingdoms, leaving a power vacuum that the Fulani people filled. Then, by the 16th century, the Fulani had established a strong domination over the mountainous region of Fouta Djallon in west-central Guinea, which is an area that's still pretty important to this day. And it wasn't until the 1890s that France entered the picture. They colonised the land and formally established Guinea as a French colony. The French were in power for decades, right up until 1958. But after World War II, the cracks in the colonial structure started to show. Because following the war, France adopted a new French Fourth Republic constitution in 1946. This was significant because it made a small concession, allowing a select few French-educated Africans to finally vote for deputies to the French National Assembly. Then, in 1958, France held a referendum on a constitution for the new French Fifth Republic. The colonies had a choice: either join the French community or opt for full independence. Guess what? Under the powerful influence of Sékou Touré, Guinea was the only French West African colony to vote a resounding no. And just like that, Guinea became independent on October 2nd, 1958. But that choice came at a price. France was not happy about that decision, so it decided to immediately withdraw all aid. That's when Sékou Touré became the country's first president. He was a fiercely nationalistic and anti-imperialist leader, and he was determined to keep Guinea truly independent, even if it meant playing a dangerous geopolitical game. He was forced to look elsewhere for support, and initially he courted the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. Not only that, he even played a bit of a diplomatic game with the US and the Soviets during the Cold War. But unfortunately, Touré's rule grew increasingly repressive. His economic policies were uncertain, and despite Guinea's potential wealth, the country didn't prosper. Power became concentrated among his own family and Malinka associates, and the initial mass support for his party, the Democratic Party of Guinea, faded. So when Sékou Touré died in 1984, the lack of grassroots support for his party made the ensuing military coup almost inevitable. And it was met with strong public support. As a result, Colonel Lansana Conté became the second president, promising a more open, pluralist society and welcoming private ownership and international investment. But the move toward true democracy was slow. Despite a new constitution in 1991 and multi-party elections in 1993, civil unrest continued. Conté survived an attempted coup in 1996, and then the country got caught up in the horrific civil wars raging in neighbouring Sierra Leone and Liberia. Hundreds of thousands of refugees poured into Guinea, adding immense tension and instability. In the 2000s, things got even rougher. Conté amended the constitution in 2001 to allow for unlimited presidential terms and extend them from 5 to 7 years. Talk about locking in power. Then, high costs of living and corruption sparked massive protests in 2007, which were brutally suppressed by security forces. Conté held on until his death in December 2008. And, literally, as soon as the news was public, a military faction launched a coup. The new transitional government, the National Council for Democracy and Development, or CNDD, led by Captain Musa Dadis Camara, promised a return to democracy, but things quickly deteriorated. The infamous 2009 rally saw a brutal military crackdown on protesters against Camara's potential candidacy, resulting in the deaths of at least 150 people and over 1,000 injured. The CNDD eventually dissolved after Camara was wounded in an assassination attempt, and the country finally held its first free election in 2010, marking a return to civilian rule. The result? Veteran opposition leader Alpha Condé won the runoff election and was inaugurated in December. Condé faced massive challenges, from surviving an assassination attempt in 2011 to inheriting a bankrupt country. He began reviewing mining contracts, which is a major deal in mineral-rich Guinea. Then, the deadly Ebola virus disease outbreak began in Guinea in December 2013, tragically spreading to Liberia and Sierra Leone, and ultimately claiming over 11,000 lives across the region in 2 years. Condé was re-elected in 2015, and while his second term saw economic growth thanks to the mining industry, he faced increasing criticism for an authoritarian approach. The final straw came in 2019, when his government proposed a new constitution. The most controversial part: it wasn't retroactive, meaning Condé could potentially run for a third term. Massive protests erupted. Despite the opposition boycotting the polls, the new constitution passed, and in October 2020, Condé was declared the winner of his third, highly controversial term. But less than a year later, on September 5, 2021, Condé was overthrown in a coup by the National Committee for Rally and Development, or CNRD military junta, led by Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. Unsurprisingly, the public mostly welcomed this coup, seeing it as an end to corruption and mismanagement. Doumbouya became the transitional president, and while he promised a return to civilian rule, a deadline of 24 months for that return was missed. The transitional government has faced accusations of being authoritarian itself, banning protests, dissolving political parties, and suspending media licenses. And as of late 2025, a new draft constitution was overwhelmingly approved in a referendum, leading the way for a presidential election scheduled for December 28, 2025. This history, as you can see, is a powerful, ongoing narrative of independence and the struggle for stable democracy. So, let's hit pause on that for a minute and switch to something we can all appreciate now. Guinea's geography. Guinea is a country in Western Africa that rests right on the Atlantic coast. It borders Guinea-Bissau to the west, then Senegal to the north, Mali to the northeast, and Côte d'Ivoire to the southeast. To the south, it borders Liberia and Sierra Leone, with the mighty Atlantic Ocean completing the western edge. Now, here's something you might not know about Guinea. It is absolutely vital to West Africa's ecosystem. Why? Because 3 of Western Africa's most major rivers, namely the Gambia River, the Niger River, and the Senegal River, all have their headwaters right here in Guinea. That's why it's often called the water tower of West Africa. But besides that, what makes Guinea so interesting geologically is that the country is naturally divided into 4 distinct geographical regions, and each one is like its own little world. So let's take a road trip through them, shall we? We start on the western edge with Lower Guinea, which includes the Atlantic coast and a narrow coastal plain. This area is defined by what geographers call rias, which are essentially drowned river valleys that create these lovely inlets and tidal estuaries. It features mangrove swamps, remote beaches, and lovely offshore islands, which are actually just the remnants of former hills. Also, the national capital, Conakry, sits right here, specifically on Tombo Island, and then spreading up the Cayenne Peninsula. It's the country's main port and gateway to the sea, where you'll find the coastal plain. Then, the coastal plain slams into the next region, the majestic Fouta Djallon Highlands. It's a huge, enormous sandstone block, covering roughly 77,000 square kilometres, or 30,000 square miles. This region is mostly a pastoral highland, and these highlands are broken up by deep, incised valleys and marked by ancient volcanic structures like the Kakulima Massif. The highest point in the highlands is Mount Tamge, soaring up to 1,538 metres, or 5,046 feet. On top of that, this region is also famous for its verdant hills And, you guessed it, stunning waterfalls. Next, we move northeast into the Upper Guinea region. This area is composed of the Niger Plains, which gently slope towards the Sahara. Think of it as the hotter, drier savanna region. So, as you can imagine, it's a flatter relief, broken only by rounded granite hills and extensions of the Fouta Djallon. After that, we arrive at the southeast corner, known as the Forest region or the Guinea Highlands. Historically, this has been an isolated area, characterised by beautiful forests and dense tropical rainforest. The rocks here are similar to those in Upper Guinea, but the feature that dominates this landscape is Mount Nimba, the highest point in all of Guinea, standing tall at 1,752 metres or 5,748 feet. This mountain is located right on the border with Liberia and Côte d'Ivoire, and its slopes are covered in dense forest, much of which is part of the Mount Nimba Strict Nature Reserve. This reserve is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, famous for its incredibly unique and diverse array of plants and animals, which you're going to have to see for yourself. But all right, we've seen the geographical landscape of Guinea. Now, it's time to take a closer look at its economic landscape. Well, first thing you need to know is this. The World Bank says Guinea's GDP was about $25.33 billion in 2024. But other experts say the real size of the economy, especially when you factor in how much things actually cost there, is much bigger, like $102 billion in 2025. And that massive difference just shows you how much of the economy is hard to measure. Regardless of the data though, here's the good news. Guinea's economy is growing strong because of all those natural resources. The boom is actually expected to get even bigger, averaging around 10% growth between 2026 and 2027. And that jump is mostly thanks to the massive Simandou iron ore project finally starting to ship its exports. But despite this booming growth, it just hasn't made life significantly better for the average person. The poverty rate is still high. Did you know that back in 2017, it was about 52%? While it's come down since then, 28.4% of the population was still living on less than $4.20 a day in 2024. Perhaps you're wondering why. Well, it's because the growth is all trapped in the mining sector, which is automated and doesn't hire many people. So, the everyday non-mining sectors, where up to 96% of people actually find work, aren't growing fast enough to create good jobs. It's like the World Bank said, the main job is transforming that big, powerful growth into actual job opportunities for Guineans. The huge Simandou iron ore project is a golden ticket, a chance to completely transform the economy, but only if the government uses the money wisely and makes sure everybody benefits, not just a few people at the top. And speaking of everybody, we can't talk about Guinea without talking about its people and culture. This place is an incredible melting pot, home to a wide range of ethnic groups, which means it's a land of more than 20 languages. You've got the Fulani, who are the largest group and live primarily in the highlands. Then there are the powerful Mandinka or Malinka, known for their historical kingdoms. And along the coast you find the Susu. Each of these groups has something unique to offer, but despite all that linguistic and ethnic diversity, they share one strong, unifying factor: religion. Guinea is overwhelmingly Muslim, with about 85% of the population adhering to Islam. Because of this, the cornerstone of life here is the extended family, which is typically large and spans multiple generations. And according to tradition, the senior woman in the home resolves disputes and manages the allocation of family duties, underscoring the importance of respect and hierarchy. Additionally, harmonious polygamous homes, especially in rural settings, often ensure adequate resources for childcare, cooking, and labouring in the fields. Oh, and another thing, titles and property are traditionally passed down through male family members, though specific inheritance patterns and traditions apply differently based on the ethnic group. But if you want to truly feel the soul of Guinea, you have to experience the music. Music, it's the heartbeat of the culture, playing a central role in every ceremony, festival, and celebration. The country is famous worldwide for traditional instruments like the kora, that beautiful 21-string bridge harp, the balafon, which is a wooden xylophone, and of course, the powerful djembe and dunun drums. Guinea also has one of West Africa's most famous traditions, The griots, these are the cultural guardians, the professional storytellers and musicians who preserve the history, memories, and genealogies of their people through songs and tales, ensuring that the past lives on in the present. Finally, we can't forget the cuisine. Guinean food is a vibrant fusion that reflects the region's agricultural bounty. So, expect delicious dishes featuring staples like rice and millet, combined with fish, meats, and tropical fruits, all brought to life with rich sauces and spices. You'll see this rich culture on full display in the colourful festivals and markets, where you can find incredible artisan skills in weaving, pottery, and mask making. That's Guinea, a rich, dynamic story of tradition, rhythm, and profound community. It's a country that, despite its challenges, pulses with life and history. Which part was your favourite? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, you'll love this next one.